Welcome to Just Between Us, part of Between the Now and the Next podcast. I'm your host, Heather Justice. I'm back with another solo minisode to reflect on the episode that was released last week. Brittany Lee Allen was my guest, and we talked about her book titled Free to Weep. And while I was editing, I picked up on a couple things that Brittany shared that left me pondering. The first one is we were talking about suffering and how suffering is because of sin, the original sin that came into the world that broke everything. Brittany said when we're calling suffering itself good, then it's like saying that this evil thing that God hates is good. So it points us to the suffering, and it also points us to the strength of others. So if somebody is saying that, oh, now I believe the suffering is good because I saw God work in it, but they're calling the suffering itself good, then it puts the glory on the person. They're saying, oh, they can now call the suffering good. And that's actually a horrible thing that they're calling good, and their faith is so strong. And so it puts the focus on the person and how quote unquote strong they are for enduring this terrible, horrible thing and suffering that's happened in their life. But when we flip that and when we say, no, this thing is evil, it's horrible, and God actually does not call it good. It is not good. And then here is the thing she said that just got me. She said, God does not call it good, but He is good in it. And I've seen His faithfulness in it. And He has worked good things out of it. All of that points our eyes to God. And I thought that was so good because I feel like we hear, man, you're so strong, you're so resilient, you're so brave, you're so all of these things that's pointing everything back to you or me or the human in the suffering that they're enduring, rather than focusing on God and saying, this really bad thing happened, this really bad thing is going on, but God is still good. God is good. God is going to be faithful through this. He is faithful through this. I just wanted to share that because I felt like that was such an important thing to share and to point out from my episode with her. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. Do you feel or resonate with what I'm saying here, or do you view this a different way? I would love to hear from you all, whether that's talking to me on Instagram, through a DM on Facebook, or email. I would love to chat with you guys and hear your perspectives on this. Another thing that we talked about was when people are grieving, I said to Brittany that people often can't sit with us in our grief, and that is oftentimes what we need. We just need somebody to sit in the hole with us. And why do people find that so difficult to do for their friends or their loved ones? And Brittany said, I think in the book I wrote something like, we like to be mechanics of hearts because we want to fix it. Because one, we don't want people to hurt, and that's a good thing. But two, we don't want people to hurt because it's really uncomfortable for us. Because it's hard to enter into somebody's suffering. And I want to acknowledge that it is a hard work that we're called to as Christians, and we have our example in Jesus doing that as well. Oftentimes when I'm sitting in grief and I'm struggling, I want somebody to come sit in the hole with me. I was actually reading in Job this morning. The Lord has turned me back to that book so many times, and every time I read it, I get something different. But Brittany and I talked about this in our full episode too. We talked about Job, but I was reading that in depth this morning, and he had his 3 friends come, and they said from afar, they didn't even recognize him. He had shaved his head and he ripped his robe, and he was already grieving and mourning, but they didn't even recognize him from a distance. And I went and kind of studied this morning, and I couldn't find anything in commentaries or anything that spoke why they did not recognize him as he was. But I'm sure part of that has to do with how disheveled he was because of his mourning and his grieving. I mean, he lost servants, donkeys, camels, sheep, 3 children. That's so much loss. And I just have to imagine that his friends didn't recognize him because, sure, he shaved his head and he ripped his robe, but he must have been so distraught and disheveled. And I know what I look like when I've been crying for hours on end, or just in the depths of suffering and having a hard time, honestly, getting out of bed or taking a shower even, and just caring for myself and the basic needs of daily life. And I know what I look like. I can only imagine what Job must have looked like and why his friends did not recognize him. But the thing I want to point out is that they came and they sat with him for 7 days. And that was part of the mourning process then. They came, they did not speak a word to him for 7 days. They grieved with him and sat with him while he grieved, but they did not say one word to him for 7 days. And then when they started speaking, Job wishes that they would have just not spoken for maybe another 7 days or ever. But I feel like that's a great example of what it looks like to just be there and to love on our friends and our loved ones. And yes, it is uncomfortable to sit with somebody in their grief sometimes, but I know that I also don't expect or even want people to offer a solution or to try to fix something when the grief and the hurt is so new and so real. And so that's what I wanted to share today. So I really do hope that you got something from this episode. And if you have never read Job, I really encourage you to go and read that book. It's a hard read, but it's such a good read. So I hope that you will just see what it's like to sit with somebody in their grief. But I hope today's episode encouraged you and makes you think maybe a little more about grief and how we show up for those that we love and care about in their times and seasons. And also, what does that look like for you? What kind of support and love and care do you need when you are struggling with grief? I'd love to continue this conversation, like I said, on Instagram or Facebook or via email. I would love to hear what you all have to say about this topic. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for listening. Until next time, keep living between the now and the next.